Yes, we are live. Hello, and welcome to the Chinksey Sports Presents the Premier League show. We are back again. And are we still called Chinksey Sports, they ask? Well, if I'm honest with you, I was contemplating changing the name to Chinksey Media Presents, but that doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? So I think we're just going to remain Chinksey Media as a channel, but this podcast will remain Chinksey Sports Presents the Premier League show. So now on Sunday, I decided to change the name to Chinksey Media based on the nature of our content, as we're not so much concentrated on sports and music at this moment in time, but also gaming, current affairs, and much more. So we just want to say thank you guys for helping us reach yet another milestone. We've reached 12k subscribers and we get one step closer to the overall target for the year. All right, enough of that. Without any further ado, the first game of last weekend, which was only a couple days ago, was at Brentford Stadium, the GTEC Stadium. In the game between Brentford and Liverpool ended 4-1 to the Reds. The nature of Brentford's defending for Liverpool's first goal will, I'm sure, be a cause for concern for Thomas Frank. After a Brentford corner, clearance downfield found Diogo Jota and Darwin Núñez 2-on-1 with Sergio Reguilon on loan from Tottenham. Núñez subsequently lobbed Mark Flecken to put the Reds 1-up going into the break. Liverpool marksman Mohamed Salah, a 44th minute substitute for the injured Jota, got himself an assist for Alexis McAllister before scoring his first goal for Liverpool since returning from injury and international duty with Egypt to make it 3-0 and game, set and match. The forward had missed 8 games in total as Jurgen Klopp's men continued their quadruple assault in his absence. Further goals from self-proclaimed Liverpool fan Ivan Toney and Cody Gakpo ensured the result ended in a comprehensive 4-1 win away from home to Liverpool. Whilst the result and the overall manner of the performance was an overall net positive, Klopp will be sweating over the availability of some of his key squad members for the coming matches, like the one today against Luton in a couple hours, which vice-captain Trent Alexander-Arnold already ruled out of Sunday's Carabao Cup clash with Chelsea, will miss. Okay, so Liverpool romped to a 4-1 win against Brentford and obviously maintained their position at the top of the Premier League. So that meant Arsenal went into the game against Burnley a whopping 5 points behind Liverpool. However, they won 5-0 at Turf Moor. Mikel Arteta's dynamic and explosive Arsenal side, spearheaded by Bukayo Saka, romped to their 5th successive league victory in a row. Once Martin Odegaard's trademark drive should I say, into the bottom corner put Arsenal 1-up after just 4 minutes, there was no doubt whatsoever as to who would be taking the spoils. A brace from Bukayo Saka included a penalty and a strike on his supposed weaker right foot completely discombobulated the Clarets as Arsenal ran riot and raced into a 3-goal lead with over 45 minutes of the game remaining. Scary stuff. Further goals from Leandro Trossard and Kai Havertz added gloss to a galvanised Gunners side who moved into second position with the win. That win was also the first time Arsenal have won their opening 5 league games in a calendar year. Or should I say at the start of a calendar year. Arteta's side are now finding the perfect hybrid in terms of their style from last season, where they blew teams away in 20-30 minutes of football with their fast-paced attacking style, and this season's more controlled and measured style, where they have dominated matches almost completely suffocated the opposition. So it looks like Arsenal, after their Dubai break, have now come into their own and have hit a sweet spot in terms of form with 5 wins from 5. So at that stage, they were second before Man City's game, which we'll come up to. Okay, another 3 o'clock kickoff was between Tottenham and Wolverhampton Wanderers. That ended 2-1 to Wolves. A Dejan Kulusevski equaliser straight after the break was not enough to cancel out a João Gomez brace after the Portuguese midfielder bagged the goal either side of half-time. In this game, Gary O'Neill's Wolves side exploited Spurs' two main weaknesses. His first goal was an unmarked header from a corner, and his second came from a counter-attack when the mercurial Pedro Neto used his pace to outrun Spurs fullback Emerson Royal before cutting back for Gomez to score the winner and secure the 3 points for Wolves side, who have now won 3 from 3 against Tottenham. And 4 out of their last 5 matches against Postecoglou's outfit, although Postecoglou's only been present for 2 of those. Spurs are now a mere 3 points ahead of 6th placed Manchester United, but still only 2 points behind Aston Villa, who currently occupy 4th as the race for Champions League football hots up. Right, another game at 3 o'clock was the game between Nottingham Forest and West Ham United. West Ham United's on loan England and Manchester City midfielder Calvin Phillips compounded West Ham's woes after his red card for 2 bookable offences continued the theme of his disastrous loan spell. He has clearly been bereft of match fitness, and as a consequence, he has been giving away goals, looked out of shape and severely lacking confidence. Nottingham Forest, who before this game hadn't won in their previous 4 league games dating back to last year, took advantage of an even worse 10-man West Ham side who were clearly still feeling sorry for themselves after the previous week's home drubbing to second-placed Arsenal. Forest drew a number of fantastic saves from France stopper Alphonse Areola, but there was no stopping Taiwo Awoni's awesome touch-come-turn and finish in first half added time. Similarly, in second half added time, in the 94th minute, a strike from Callum Hudson-Odoi, who notched his 3rd goal in his last 3 games, capped off a great evening for Forest as they moved further away from the drop zone. So a vital win for Nottingham Forest, who needed that to give themselves a little bit of buffer over the likes of Burnley, Sheffield United, Luton and Everton at the bottom of the table. Okay, another 3 o'clock kickoff, we had quite a few on Saturday, was at the Cottage between Fulham and Aston Villa, and it ended 2-1 to the Villains. Aston Villa returned to winning ways after a recent poor run of form saw them turn from title dark horses to top 5 or 6 contenders in the space of a few weeks. Ollie Watkins, who will almost certainly be in England's Euro 2024 squad, scored a brace to put him on 13 goals and 10 assists in the Premier League this season, which is a remarkable feat for the former Exeter City and Brentford man, who used to be a left winger. I remember that as well. A late Rodrigo Muniz consolation wasn't enough to salvage anything from the game for Fulham, as the Brazilian notched his 4th goal in 3 Premier League matches. I seem to talk about him every week, but in truth, he has been a revelation in Raul Jimenez's absence. And to be fair, at this moment in time, even if Jimenez was fit, I doubt he'll be getting in that team over Muniz. Okay, Newcastle v Bournemouth was yet another 3 o'clock kickoff. In the game's opening embers, Aston Villa won that game 2-1. This game was a draw, a Desmond 2-all between Newcastle and Bournemouth. Golden Boot contender Dominic Solanke and Martin Dubravka faced off a number of times as the Slovak kept the Bournemouth striker at bay on numerous occasions. Well, that was until he slipped after receiving the pass from Sven Botman to gift Solanke what probably has been the easiest of all his 14 Premier League goals this season. In last week's podcast, my prediction was all of Dom Solanke, Anthony Gordon, and Callum Wilson would score. And the second of the three did so with a well-struck penalty to equalise for Newcastle just before the hour mark. Callum Wilson didn't feature in this game as he was out with a chest injury, but the two I predicted scored managed to do so. Antoine Semenyo, who I like, reminds me of Charles Nzogbia, former Newcastle left-footed right winger. Scored a tremendous arrowed strike with his weaker right foot to put Bournemouth back into the lead, as it looked like the Cherries were going to clinch their first win in their 6th attempt. But for a 92nd minute equaliser from former Bournemouth winger Matt Ritchie, who had just entered the fray 2 minutes earlier. Super sub. It'll be interesting to see if Matt Ritchie does feature for Newcastle on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday at 8 o'clock against Arsenal. These two drop points will feel like a defeat for Andoni Iraola, and it will be interesting to see how his side fare against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City on Saturday afternoon in what I feel will be an exciting and competitive matchup. More about that match later on in the podcast. Okay, finally, we're on to the 5:30 kickoff, which was the game of the weekend between Manchester City and Chelsea. That ended in a 1-1 stalemate. After City's second successive draw against Chelsea brought their 11-game winning streak to an abrupt halt, Chelsea were well worth their point against Manchester City after Raheem Sterling bagged the opener on the counter-attack, a route to goal that the Blues had exploited on a few occasions that day. Erling Haaland missed a number of gilt-edged chances, which on another day he would have come away with the match ball, a hat-trick. With City trailing and looking like they were running out of ideas, up stepped Champions League winning goal scorer Rodri with one of the trademark late runs into the box to equalise in the 83rd minute as the game ended 1 apiece. Chelsea are now in 9th position, just 3 points off of 7th placed Brighton as they prepare to face off with Liverpool, a side that beat them 4-1 just a few weeks prior. City's form against the traditional Big Six, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Manchester United and Chelsea, has seen them pick up just a solitary win, which was away at Manchester United, I believe in September or August. I think it was September. Anyways, so we are now down to the last 3 games of, or should I say 4 games of the week stroke this week. And we're into the first of Sunday's double header, which was at Bramall Lane between Sheffield United and Brighton Hove Albion. That ended 5-0 to Brighton. After on loan Everton centre-half Mason Holgate was sent off after a horrendous and ferociously dangerous lunge on Japanese winger Kairo Montoma, the informed Facundo Buonanotte, who I seem to talk about on this podcast every week, opened the scoring for Brighton on a 20-minute mark after diabolical marking from a corner. When Brighton, now a man up and a goal to the good, scored the first goal, I feared the worst for Sheffield United. And after veteran striker Danny Welbeck made it 2, as the Seagulls went into the break 2-0 to the good. It remained 2-0 until the last 15 minutes after a great defensive display from the Blades kept Brighton at bay. However, when a Jack Robinson own goal and a brace from Simon Adingra, who buoyed by his role in Ivory Coast AFCON triumph just 7 days prior, completed the 5-0 rout as Brighton leapfrogged both Newcastle and West Ham into 7th place in the league. With 4 of Brighton's 5 goals coming from crosses into the box, there is clearly an underlying issue for Chris Wilder's side. There's no point in sacking him now though, as the squad is clearly bereft of any quality. This was the third successive game that his Blade side have conceded 5 goals at home. Crazy. And on 2 of those occasions, Brighton were the perpetrators. Sheffield United's next home game is against an Arsenal side who have bagged 11 goals in their last 2 games. Okay, the 4:30 kickoff at Kenilworth Road was between Luton Town and Manchester United. That ended 2-1 to United. Luton, who seem to have reverted to type in recent weeks, giving away poor goals, gave themselves an uphill mountain to climb, similar to last week against Sheffield United, as Manchester United raced into a 2-goal lead in the space of just 7 minutes through their 21-year-old Danish forward Rasmus Højlund, who now has 7 goals in his last 6 games and has scored in all 6 of those games consecutive. A 14th minute goal from Carlton Morris turned out to be a mere consolation as Luton huffed and puffed. The Hatters now have gone 3 games without a win and find themselves in the bottom 3 because Everton, who faced Crystal Palace on Monday, drew 1-1 with Palace. Ahead of the game, Roy Hodgson announced that he was stepping aside as Crystal Palace manager in what is likely to be his last ever managerial position. And the former Eintracht Frankfurt manager Oliver Glasner, I think he's Austrian, was announced as his successor with a contract until the end of next season. I don't think he took charge of this game though. When Crystal Palace announced their front 3 of Odsonne Edouard, Jean-Philippe Mateta and Jordan Ayew, I could only imagine the trepidation that their travelling fans must have felt, as travelling to Liverpool on a Monday evening is both financially and time consuming. That being said, Palace took the lead through their Ghanaian international winger Jordan Ayew and looked like they were heading for 3 points until a late equaliser 6 minutes from time from substitute Amadou Onana after heading in from a corner meant that Everton got the pivotal point they needed to climb out of the dreaded drop zone as they swapped places with the aforementioned Luton Town. Okay, so now down to game week 18's game in hand, which was played yesterday evening at the Etihad Stadium between Manchester City and Brentford, ended 1-0 to Manchester City. In the first half, City, who started their young prodigy winger, Oscar Bob, in place of Kevin De Bruyne, struggled as they were passive and pedestrian in possession of the ball and were susceptible to the counter-attack due to their high line, very high line. On a few occasions, Brentford's front 3 actually managed to breach and beat the offside trap, with Frank Onyeka coming closest for the away side. The midfielder, who starred in Nigeria's march to the AFCON final, was clearly brimming with confidence, and his effervescent runs from deep were clearly a cause for concern for Pep Guardiola, who also had Jeremy Doku on the bench. Ivan Toney, looking for his 5th goal in 6 games, also went close for the Bees with a free kick. I remember listening to an interview from Tony where he said that he'd set himself a goal target for the last 19 games of the season. And I was wondering to myself whether it was 10 or 15 goals he was thinking or targeting. Because one thing's for sure is that he'll definitely reach double figures, especially having already got 4 goals. And that should really be enough to secure a spot in Gareth Southgate's England Euro 2024 squad. Okay, in the second half, the obvious substitution was made, with the Norwegian winger Oscar Bob making way for the electric and dynamic winger Jeremy Doku. As City began to up the ante in what was their game in hand and essentially a must-win game, it took a Brentford mistake to finally let City in. When Christopher Ajer slipped and allowed Erling Haaland free rein at goal, the outcome was inevitable, a procession, especially after his misfiring match against Chelsea on Saturday. There was no way he was missing this one once one-on-one with Mark Flecken, and he didn't. Once City went 1-0 up, it was a procession, and they just kept possession of the ball and saw the game out to secure what was a vital win, which takes them up to second position, leapfrogging Arsenal in the process, just 1 point off of first place Liverpool, who play today. So a recap of last weekend, stroke yesterday and the day before football matches. Saw me get only 4 correct scores, a poor week for me. 4 correct results and no correct scores, a poor week for me. So let's see if I can fare better this week. Starting with Liverpool against Luton Town, kicking off in about hour and a half or so. After Manchester City's narrow 1-0 win last night, the Reds have a wonderful opportunity to go 4 points clear tonight at Anfield under the lights. With the Carabao Cup final against Chelsea not until Sunday, they face a Luton side who, although took a point off of Liverpool back in November, are now currently winless in 3 and need a result to climb out of the drop zone. Liverpool, who currently have an injury crisis with the likes of Darwin Núñez, Mo Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Diogo Jota, and if I'm not wrong, Alisson as well, all likely to miss the match, should win this one, especially with the likes of Harvey Elliott, Ryan Gravenberch, Joe Gomez, Conor Bradley, and Cody Gakpo, all capable of stepping in. And I believe Liverpool will win, so I've gone for a 3-0 win to Liverpool. The game between Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur was supposed to be on Friday evening, but the match has been postponed due to Chelsea's Carabao Cup final match against Liverpool on Sunday. So we'll miss that one out and go to the game at Selhurst Park between Crystal Palace and Burnley. With new manager Oliver Glasner taking the reins for the first time, a new manager bounce should be expected, especially given the fact that in the next 5 or 6 games they play the likes of Luton, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, all relegation 6-pointers. Burnley, who will be equally looking at this Palace game as a must-win, have won only 1 in their last 12 in all competitions and none in their last 8, not to mention the fact that they're coming off a 5-0 drubbing by Arsenal. That being said, I think Vincent Kompany's side will improve on last week's result, wouldn't take much, and performance, but not enough to take anything out of this game. So I'm going for a plucky, scrappy 2-1 win to Crystal Palace. Another game is the Midlands derby between Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest. I've gone for, Aston Villa, knowing that a win will suffice, only a win will suffice, with Manchester United hot on the heels. Their victory against Fulham was a much needed one for confidence after a poor run of results. Similarly, Nottingham Forest arrested what was a 4-match winless run before their 2-0 home win against West Ham on Saturday. Their front four of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White and Taiwo Awoniyi will cause Villa all sorts of problems, but I expect Ollie Watkins and co to have more than enough to cope with what will be a spirited Forest side and win by a narrow 2-1 scoreline. So I've gone 2-1 to Aston Villa. Following that, we have the game at Old Trafford between informed Man United and Fulham. United are on the back of 5 consecutive wins in all competitions and are 7 games unbeaten since their defeat to Nottingham Forest on New Year's Eve last year. Incidentally, they return to the City ground next Wednesday to try and exact their revenge in the FA Cup. If the Red Devils harbour any hopes of sneaking into the top 4, then a win is paramount, and it will see them go level on points with Spurs in 5th if they beat an inconsistent Fulham side who have won just once in their last 8 in all competitions. The football hasn't been great of recent for Manchester United, but they are picking up points and results, which is their most important thing. And I'm backing them to pick up yet another 3 points here too. So I've gone 2-0 to Manchester United. Right, the game between Brighton Hove Albion and Everton. Well, the fact that Brighton have not picked up consecutive wins since November, and before that September, and before that August. So Brighton have only won 2 games in a row on 3 occasions all year, which is very surprising to me considering that they're 7th in the league. With a league high 8 draws, they come up against an Everton side winless in 8 league games. But picked up a vital and morale boosting point late on at Goodison Park on Monday, a point which took them out of the drop zone on goal difference. All things encompassing, stylistically, this match should be a clash of styles, with Sean Dyche's rugged and compact Toffee side coming up against the slow build-up play and artistry from Roberto De Zerbi's Seagull side, who may have an eye on next week's FA Cup 5th round tie against Wolves at Molineux. That should be a good game. But in this one, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. Okay, the game that I'm actually looking forward to, probably out of all of them, is the one between Bournemouth and Manchester City. 13th place Bournemouth, winless in 6 league games. So I was just trying to work out Bournemouth stadiums, the Vitality. I always forget the stadium. Yeah, the Vitality Stadium. Take on a Manchester City side who have already beaten them comprehensively. And that was 6-1 at the Etihad back in November. Having said that, it was after that particular result that Andoni Iraola's side went on a run, which saw them pick up 6 wins from the next 7 league games. And they've only won 7 league games all season. So that is actually a remarkable stat. Now, time for any Bournemouth fans to close your ears. Have you closed them? Okay. Manchester City and Bournemouth have faced off on 20 occasions in history, and Manchester City have emerged victorious on 18 of those occasions, drawing the other 2. So Manchester City have never lost to Bournemouth in history. City are currently on a 14-game winning run against the Cherries, and whilst Bournemouth are a good side, especially at home, I expect City to win this one, and I think it will be 3-1. I was torn between 3-1 and 3-2, but I think with City resting up De Bruyne and Doku for this one, I expect them to win comfortably. Okay, the 8 o'clock kickoff, a rare 8 o'clock Saturday kickoff, is between Arsenal and Newcastle. No love lost between these two. You'll remember what happened in the previous game. Arsenal, with their 21 goals in their last 5 Premier League matches, go into this game full of confidence against a Newcastle side who have conceded 16 goals in the last 5 matches. That is a whopping stat. And it's not like they've lost all those games. I think they've won quite a few of those. In saying that, the Gunners have won just once in their last 4 games against the Magpies and have been scoreless in all 3 of the games that they didn't win. Clearly, the key to Newcastle's success at the Emirates is to keep a clean sheet. I don't think Eddie Howe's side have it in them to replicate the results of last November or even last January, when it ended 0-0 and 1-0 respectively. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Arsenal. Okay, the game between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Sheffield United is our penultimate game of the podcast. And last game of the week because it's on a Sunday. Sheffield United, having conceded 5 goals in each of the last 3 home games, must prefer playing away from Bramall Lane at this rate. They even won 3-1 at Luton's Kenilworth Road, which is renowned for being a difficult place to go. That being said, anything other than a Wolves win would be a coupon buster, even with the home side losing their last 2 home games to Manchester United and Brentford, respectively, but bouncing back on both occasions to win at Chelsea and Spurs, respectively. I'm expecting Gary O'Neill's Wolves side to return to winning ways at Molineux with a comfortable 3-0 win. And yes, so we're now down to Monday's game between West Ham United and Brentford. David Moyes' struggling West Ham side are winless and scoreless in the last three, have fallen from 6th to ninth, and could find themselves in 11th if results don't go their way this weekend. Well, in fact, they could kick off in 11th position, given this game kicks off on Monday. They look bereft of confidence and devoid of any ideas and creativity in the absence of chief creator and talisman Lucas Paqueta. Brentford, on the other hand, put up a great fight, a valiant fight against Manchester City last night, but ultimately lost. However, I've seen enough of an improvement in Thomas Frank's side since then to think that they can pick up enough points to beat the drop. And I think they will pick up all 3 points in this one too. So I've gone for what would probably be seen as a shock win for Brentford. I think West Ham will be slight favourites for this one with the bookies. But in my head, I think Brentford are going to nick this one 2-1. Okay. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in 10 days' time. Bow.